You on mute. Welcome to Biz Dev Live. I am so excited to celebrate International Women's Day with you. We have the amazing Erika Obando. She's going to talk to you about the empowerment of your voice, making sure that you stand up, make sure that you are seen, and make sure that you are making a positive impact, not only on your immediate world, but the greater world around. Looking forward to getting into all that and more. Stay with me right after the Biz Dev theme.
Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. This is business development, not even selling it. This is intelligent. If you watch it, I promise you benefit. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration. Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T.
Erika Obando is a relentless advocate for defining a life with purpose. Erika has made it her mission to leave impacting ripples for generations to come. An active international TEDx speaker, author, mentor, and community leader, her legacy in working with individuals, guiding them through the blueprint of changing the narrative of their stories. Her efforts are focused on women empowerment, youth enrichment, and lifestyle pivoting strategies using the art of reinvention at any age. Please welcome to the show, Erika Obando. Thanks for being here with me.
Thank you, Cameron. Thank you for having me. It's a wonderful day to be here speaking about empowerment, right? On International Women's Day.
That's right. That's right. No, I'm excited. And I think, one of the things that I've definitely appreciated, over the years, I have a 14-year-old daughter. We're working towards her quince in August, which has been kind of pushed back. So we'll celebrate it in a sort of reserve this way and wait till next year when all family can come together. So she's embarking on her womanhood journey. My wife and all the women that, I'm in the hospitality business. So there's just a lot of women in the workplace around me all over the place. And something that has been a very common thread, and even in the college and career preparation I do in the high school, is the societal sort of push for or forces that kind of push a woman not to have that same level of voice. I see the resumes all the time, very similar resumes. The guy is like, yep, I do this, I'm this, very confident with it. Women are like, yeah, and I'm sorry. And then like, oh man, come on. You got to give me, you have everything and more. Let's go. Raise your voice with my daughter, raise that hand, let them see the knowledge that you have inside. My wife, who's trying to find her way in the world in terms of finding that thing that she is most passionate about. I'm like, go out, sample, try, let's do it. The world wants you. The world's ready for you. Your story is powerful and people want to hear it. They want you. So I love this empowerment theme. And I think this, again, is a great day for it. I'm blushing because I'm talking about all the people in my life. I'm a little.
That's a great thing. It's a fantastic thing.
So please tell us all the things that you're currently doing. I know you have the book. I know you work with books. So please tell us what you're doing.
So as you said, I have a book out. It's called Without a Voice, A Woman's Journey to Resiliency. It's the story of my journey. And it's been quite the interesting journey, to say the least. But I wrote the book and I wrote it to share my story. But more importantly, I want people to take it as a manual because sure, I went through a lot of hardships in my life, but what I wanted to do with the book was to put it out there as a manual so people can use it and women can use it to find their voice, empower their voice, and use their voice. And so I am an author. I am a transformational mentor. I help people through the trenches of going from a hardship or challenges in their lives, and finding their purpose and guiding them and kind of strategizing with them along the way to find their purpose and live it out. And I also do a lot of public speaking on youth enrichment and women empowerment.
I love that. And can you talk to us a little bit about that work? I don't want to give away too much because I know we're going to get further into it, but just to sort of, because I know that that is really going to tie into your story. So talk to us a little bit about that.
So I think that especially today, as we navigate this climate of 2020 and what it did to us as far as changing our perspective of our own lives. I mean, everyone was forced to question their why. Why are they here? I mean, am I really here to work the 9 to 5 or the 9 to whenever I'm done? Or am I really here to leave a legacy, to live on purpose? And so as I transformed into my legacy and said, I've got to help people out, I thought, what better timing than now to help people understand that the hardships and difficulties that they lived through 2020 are actually freeing components, right? Instead of self-sabotaging your life by saying, oh, I've got to work this job because I've got to pay my bills. It's taking 2 steps back and saying, maybe I was never meant to be at this job. Maybe I was meant to live a life of purpose or fulfill a destiny that I hadn't even thought of until the world stopped and it forced me to actually look inside and say, am I really where I want to be? And so I help people along their ways, because look, we all need a helping hand. I've had many helping hands along my journey that have gotten me where I am today. And so my purpose is to help those people find their purpose. Let's strategize together, and I've become their accountability partner so that we can execute it, successfully, so they can live their life on purpose.
I love that. All right. So I know we'll have a lot to talk about. So talk to us why you're so passionate, why you've chosen to direct your life this way. What has inspired you to be this light in people's lives?
Well, my own journey. I, without, getting into a 20-minute TED Talk, as you said, I have a TED Talk. I welcome your audience and your listeners to watch it. It's called When Breaking Points Lead to Empowerment. And it's the account of my journey. I'll briefly give you bullet points. I'm 45 years old, and I was smuggled into this country at 5 years old from Colombia for a better life, for that American dream. And that American dream came to a halt when we were deported back to Colombia when I was, 8 years old. But my family insisted, my dad in particular, he wanted to see his children fulfill a life, that we are today. And so we came back to the USA through the Mexican border, and we were detained. And a lot of things have happened through that. But more importantly, you're looking at the face of an immigrant, right? But an immigrant changing the narrative, because it's not about, how I came here, but what am I doing with how I came here? On top of that, I've been through a lot of struggles. I was molested when I was 12, and at 14, I decided to leave my home. I was living with my parents, and my mom was a severe hoarder and very abusive. And so at 14 years old, I said, I've got to change my own narrative. At that very young age, I decided I've got to figure out how my story ends, and it doesn't end like this. And so throughout my struggles, I decided I needed to be in control of my life and decide how that was going to define me at the end of my day. And because of my background, I believe I am able to help people through their trenches as they go through navigating that answer for themselves.
Absolutely. And you said, because I watched the TED Talk and you document, in detail some of the abuse that you experienced growing up. Did you say your mother was a hoarder as well, or that she just kept a lot of stuff?
Yeah, keeping a lot of stuff is an understatement.
Yeah.
A hoarder is someone that has a condition. It's actually a medical condition, and I don't say it in bad lighting. My mother was a victim of her upbringing, right? And the challenges and hardships that she went through, and her escape and her resolve to those challenges were in hoarding stuff. She had a connection with material things, and some of it was just things that were old and dirty, and they didn't work, but our house was full of it, to the point where we had trails throughout the house to be able to get from one room to another. So that wasn't something that I was aware of until I went to when I was young, I went to a friend's house and I'm like, wait, why don't you live the way I live? And I explain a lot of this in the book, but I decided that's not what I wanted. That's not what I wanted for my life. And so that's why I ended up leaving. But yeah, it's definitely a medical condition that people suffer from, most of the time it goes undiagnosed.
Yeah, no, I'm familiar. I clarified to say because I didn't want the sometimes when you're saying things in audio, it doesn't come across the right way. So I wanted to be specific and make sure I was asking the right question. So you were dealing with a lot of stuff, and you said your dad. I mean, I know the story you shared in your TED Talk. He was somewhat defensive, but obviously he was letting a lot of this stuff go on. He was a participant in abuse as well. What's your relationship with your parents now?
Well, I came to a crossroads in my life in different stages of it, where I had to make an active decision of whether I was a victim of this situation or I was going to come out on the other side victorious. I also exercised something that a lot of people kind of forget, that I help people understand. Broken people break people. Hurt people turn around and hurt other people, right? Sometimes it's not intentional. Sometimes it's because they have unresolved issues on their own that they just never dealt with or never addressed, and they are only executing the template that they were given, right? The as I call it, the generational toolbox. We all get handed one down. The minute you become an adult, your parents give you that generational toolbox, and some people will look at their toolbox and say, you know what, I'm going to use this tool on me, right? When it didn't work. It didn't work on you when your parents used it on you. Why would you turn around and use it again? But there's some people that get caught up in that and use the same toolbox over and over again. I decided that I've forgiven both of them. They truly, and I really do believe they did the best they could with what they had. And so I don't blame them. To the contrary, I actually thank them, because hardships is not bad. It's the whole topic why we're talking about today. It empowered me. And it empowered me to give to others. It empowered me to make a decision to say, I'm not going to follow that template. I'm not going to use that toolbox. I'm going to, turn it around, get a new toolbox. Take a trip to Lowe's or Home Depot, right? Get a new toolbox, fill it with tools that work, and then change the narrative, break that cycle. I love both of my parents for the strength that they gave me. Indirectly, they gave it to me. My mom, I don't have an active relationship with her, but I always wish her well. I pray for her all the time, and I love her from afar. My dad, I've reconciled in the last few years, and I couldn't picture not having him on my day-to-day life, because one of the most important things of empowerment is forgiveness. Forgiveness is key, not only to the person you are saying, hey, listen, I forgive you, but to yourself. It's like, and I know we're going to get into it, but victims are created when somebody else hands you a title. They cause something in you, a harm or a challenge or a hardship, and then they hand you this title to carry all along. They're like, here, I'm going to tell you to be a victim. And then you take that brick and you're like, okay, I'm going to carry this brick title that calls me a victim. And then along the way of your journey, you get bricks piled on you. You carry all these. Why? Those are not your bricks to carry. Put them down. Use them as the solid foundation that you stand on to build yourself up. It's not a brick for you to carry. It's a brick for you to build with. And that's what I emphasize when I tell people, from victim to victorious. Yeah. You can use the same exact brick for something completely different that'll elevate you. As
a popular refrain is your mess is your message, right?
Yeah, Correct. It's how you envision it, how you see it, right? Like I said, you know, my dad and I have been in a relationship for the last, I want to say, 3 years. He brings so much positivity to my life. I don't want to get emotional, but you know, what was, and I learned so much from him, and so much. And if nothing else, I have to be grateful for the fact that I'm here talking to you. I'm here talking this language because he made an active decision to chase that American dream for himself and for his children. So I'm very grateful for him for that.
I love that. So talk to us. How did you, because I know you experienced a lot of challenges, and I appreciate there's a lot of different similarities or commonalities in our story. I went through, and I don't talk about it a lot, but when I was very young, I was molested by a male member of our family. And so you have this, you know, these things in your brain that say, you know, am I going to do that to somebody else? You talked about, you know, because history does repeat itself, you know, with my mother, my grandmother had her at 19. She had me at 19. I had a child at 19. And so, you know, I'm trying to educate my children and, you know, trying to make sure that, you know, with my wife, who's from Mexico and came into this country illegally, and we, you know, had 2 children, and then went to go try to fix paperwork. And the U.S. government said that she couldn't come back into the country for 13 to 15 months while they reviewed a single document. And luckily she's since, you know, came in. We had 2 more children. She's a U.S. citizen now, but, you know, all these kind of crazy pieces of it. And you say, you know, you take you have a lot of mental garbage, you know, that says, you know, you can't do this, and you're not good enough for that, and that kind of stuff. How did you move from, you know, a child of abuse to a functioning adult that's actually able to help other people? Because I think there's probably a lot of people that are in that situation where they're just trying to figure it all out and trying to get themselves to a place where they can be happy, where they can allow themselves to be happy, and allow themselves not only the ability to just sort of live their life, but also feel like they're not an imposter as they try to help somebody else.
Right. Well, okay. So when you have challenges happen to you, you can't stop that from happening to you, right? You can't control what is being done. I say to you, people say to you, but for you. But you can't control what happens in your life. However, you absolutely have every responsibility to know what you're going to do with what happens to your life. It's your responsibility. It literally becomes your decision. Am I going to be a victim of this, or am I going to turn around and do something about it? And it's that inner calling that you have to tap into to say, who am I? Who am I at the end of this? You know, when you turned around and decided that you weren't going to continue the cycle of what happened to you, I'm sure you said it for a reason. One of my reasons was I became a parent. I became a mom. And that's when I found, for me, that's when I found my purpose, my reason to change the narrative, why I wanted to go out and get a new toolbox, because we have our children and they're looking at us. They don't know our history. They don't know our past. They don't know where we came from. It's a clean slate. And when you look at it that way, then you can understand that you can do whatever you want. It's like a white canvas. I paint as a hobby. I look at a white canvas every time I'm about to start painting, and there's nothing there, nothing other than what I'm about to put on it. So your life has to be like that, whether you have children or not. You have to look at your canvas and decide, what am I going to paint on it? Not somebody behind you throwing paint on it. No, what am I going to do about it? When I became a parent and I had my son, I only have one child. He's 23, amazing human being, out living his legacies, right? I decided I've got to do right by him. I cannot use the same tools that were used on me on this poor child. He didn't ask for it. So I made an active decision to say, I'm going to change the narrative. I'm going to do right by him and give him the tools. And what I ended up doing is I had no idea how to do it. It's not like I had a template to follow, right? But I decided to research, to educate myself, to reach out to people that can encourage me and give me some type of tools that I could then borrow and put them in my toolbox and say, okay, well, this will work. And it wasn't perfect. I'm sure like they say, I dropped the baby a couple of times, probably physically and metaphorically, but no one's here to judge you. We're all trying to do our best. And if you can, at the end of the day, give them all the tools, educate them, form them into a good human being, a solid, good human being with compassion, with good morals, with good intent for the world, you deliver them out to the world and then let them do their thing, right? But you have the ability to change that. Sometimes we get caught up because we're so busy just being a parent. And then without even knowing, you're using the tools that your parents used on you that you hated. But you've got to be living in the moment and ask yourself, did this work on me? Did my parents beating me work on me? Did I really learn the lesson? And do I really want to pass that on to my child? Or do I want to sit down with my child and explain to them, empower them? I used to do that with my son all the time. It's like, hey, you made a mistake. Let's sit down. Let's have this conversation. And I would empower him to decide, how are you going to get punished? You have to pay the price. There are consequences to the things that you do. So how do you feel is the best way for you to attain to the consequences? And he would choose his punishments. But you are empowering them to be responsible, to be accountable, and to know that in the process of you correcting them, you're still loving them.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, we do a lot of that between my wife and I, and supporting each other, which is something that I came from a home that my mother and father weren't together. I grew up in the city with my father, and my mother was out on the West Coast. So, I can speak from experience. You can live a life that you didn't learn, right? Because
Right.
I didn't learn how to, parent as a team from my parents. They were never together in any time that I remember. So, I'd say, you don't have to, right? You don't have to live things the way that, things were done to you. I love that message. Talk to us about, this idea of hardships as opportunities for growth and self-discovery.
I've got the perfect example. We all can relate to it. 2020, again, we were forced to ask our whys, right? I lost my employment early on, sometime in March or April. And for as devastating as I thought it was, I was freaking out because I'm like, how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to survive? What everybody was asking themselves, right? But what I didn't realize is that, the universe was telling me, Erika, you're in the wrong ball field altogether. You know where you're supposed to be, but somehow you keep trying to get to this place, and that's not your space. And it's when you surrender to that idea, when you surrender to what's happening to you, it's all trying to guide you in the right direction. I heard this one time, which was really cool to even think about, but I read this where they say that airplanes are set right from the beginning of their departure to their landing at their destination. They're set for the route. The pilot is not actually flying the plane. The pilot is only there to control a couple of tweaks here and there in case the route goes off track or whatever. But he's only there as a safety net. The plane is already set. But we're the same way in our lives, right? Our path is already set. We know where we're supposed to go. We wake up feeling it inside. There's tons of people that are like, I hate my job. Well, you know it. So then let's find what really makes you happy. With our lives, we are pilots, gripping to no end on that steering wheel, auto-correcting. You got to surrender sometimes and really listen to what the world is telling you. If you wake up in the morning and you say, I hate my job, we're already on step one. Great. Let's get you to step two. That means if you don't like this, let's find out where you're supposed to be. Let's find out what direction you're supposed to go and put those steps into place to make it happen. I used to say all the time, people are not entrepreneurs. Today's world, we're sidepreneurs. We're just doing the side hustle until we can figure out how to launch that. But just implementing it and realizing that 2020 was not, obviously being considerate to the illnesses and everything. I had COVID myself, and I wouldn't wish it on anybody. But what I'm saying is that within the hardship of 2020, of the challenges of, I lost my job, I don't know where to go. Yes, you do. You just got to sit inside for a second, be silent, and say, what did I always want to do when I grow up? I'm 45 and I'm still asking myself that question. What do I want to be when I grow up? We don't stop that question because, we got older. We need to redefine it with each year and then apply it.
Yeah, I agree. And it's interesting because, as you were saying, we're auto-correcting. I feel like there's people going the other way where they're kind of just pushing into, hey, I'm saying to you, listen, there's an easier way. Go after this route. And I think, for some people to allow themselves to go down a route, it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable, right? They don't want to go. It's a weird thing. I don't know if you have a dialogue around that, but the idea that, doing what you want to do can be very uncomfortable, for whatever reason. Maybe it's because that's taking away from the idea of security of that, cashier job that you're in, or something similar that you just aren't loving because you're going to have to take a risk and, not have a safety net if you jump into this other thing that you actually think you might enjoy.
But that's the point of me saying, I'm not saying for people to go ahead and quit their job. Some people can. I actually effectively walked away from corporate world January of this year because I had prepared. I had made the steps to take. I took the steps to prepare for that leap of faith, right? And then see where it takes me from there. But it's, again, going back to the sidepreneur. Side hustle, sidepreneur, it's side strategize until it gets to the point where you can leap. We don't have to leave our comfort zone of working as a cashier. To the contrary, you work X amount of hours. When you go home, you have X amount of hours. Make it work. We can either choose to sit in front of the TV or choose to sit there on our phones, because we all do it, right? Or you can sit there and pan out. What good is us talking about empowerment if we don't really give the tools, tangibles, right? Sit down, put together. Sit down and put together your plan. Reverse engineer it. Where do you want to be? If you had to say 5 years from now, what do you see yourself doing? Reverse engineer it from there. Look at the amazing role models online that are already doing it. How did they do it? Ask the questions. They're telling you the answers, right? We're sitting here telling you the answers. If I have to be specific, I use 2020 as an opportunity to save money so that I can, pull myself out on January and say, okay, boom, let's figure this out. And worst case scenario, if you need to go and get yourself a supplemental job in the meantime, there's nothing wrong with that. It's not a failure. It's just yet another stepping stone. But I think the opportunity lies within just deciding what you want to be, deciding what you want to do, and taking the steps to effectively make that happen. I think you're on mute.
I'm doing the 2020 theme song here, or the You're on Mute song. I think we've talked about you can change the narrative and outcome of your story. We're talking about that, how we, don't have to repeat history. I love this conversation on, the side hustle, doing, what your heart desires, that kind of thing. Kind of what I was speaking to, which I don't know if we've kind of fully gone, but, getting out of your comfort zone. I was talking to a bartender the other night, and I could sense, and it was a gentleman that I was talking to. He wasn't really happy with where, his experience had led him and what he was doing. And he asked me the question, are you on social media? I said, I'm on everything. Right. And he's like, yeah, I don't like social media. And, I think it's one of those things, right? And I was commenting on LinkedIn to somebody, the idea that, I really enjoy eating. I also enjoy being in shape. I don't enjoy doing the dishes or doing the exercise, right? But there's things that go with these other aspects, right? If you want to do X, Y, Z, you're going to have to do, like, if you want to get in shape, you're going to have to find some way. You can find an exercise that you like more than another exercise maybe, but there's going to be some sort of exercise and discipline with eating in there. There's no way to get around certain aspects of doing that hard work. If you're dealing with abuse, I know in your TED Talk, you talk about being in therapy. Therapy might be a part of, you may not be comfortable going to a therapist, but there are some things that you probably need to do when you're working with folks that need this kind of help. What do you tell them in order to sort of get outside of their comfort zones and do some of that hard work that needs to be done in order to get where they need to go?
Well, I actually want to touch on the therapy part, and it also brings me to my point of community, especially today. Today, March 8th, 2021, there are so much tools and resources for you to tap into. If you are strapped with cash, if you're strapped with finances and budgeting, it's most of the time you find it for free. You go on YouTube, you do a search of the topic that you're looking for, they're there. Look at you, right? You're interviewing people that are making a difference. People can gather some information from here. But to me is reach out. There's so many people that are willing to help you, that are willing to guide you, that are willing to sit with you. I mean, there are friends of mine that call me and say, hey, what do you think of this? And I take the time, because I know that that's so important. When somebody reaches out to you, is because they're really, they need it. They need you. And so you make the time to be able to give them what they're looking for. But therapy, I think, is so underestimated. It doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you. It just means that someone with a clean slate, that is not emotionally attached to your problem, can give you a professional assistance to guide you into a better place. I talk about it deeply in my book and in my TED Talk, that I had to go to therapy. There was no way I can continue on in life without organizing what had happened to me. I mean, and I say this too, when you go out and you drink and your stomach is feeling really, really sick, right? What does your body naturally do? It says, nope, this doesn't belong in here. I'm going to toss it right back up. And for as gross as it is, when you go and you throw up, you feel better afterwards, right? Because all that toxicity is no longer in your system. It's out of your system. Now turn that into an emotional, sickness. You've got to go and sit down with a professional and get it out and get your feelings out. And maybe sometimes even hearing it for yourself gives you the solutions or the answers that you were looking for. But it's about getting it out and having someone help you decipher it. Back in the day when I went to a therapist, she was amazing. She helped me create, and I say this in my TED Talk, a virtual library of experiences, so that I can be able to discuss some of the things that happened to me without it overcoming me, without it becoming a torment or a nightmare. I was able to discuss them and analyze them, and then again, pick out the nuggets that are within that hardship or within what happened to me, so that I can use those as my stepping stones to move up and rise from it. But I'm a huge advocate of therapy. I think that a lot of people can benefit from it, use it, and then, become better people from it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I've been fortunate that I've had a lot of outlets in my life. And I think for folks that, if you don't have an outlet, right, if you don't have a way to release stuff, and I think whether it's going to therapy or even just being a good partner. I know for my wife, I tend to be that solution guy, and I tend to be like, okay, you got a problem. I'm just going to, jump right in and I'm going to solve it for you. And she's like, stop, just listen, because, and so, I think that, we can all be that person in somebody's life. I don't think it's a replacement for therapy, but certainly it's one of those things that helps, whether, it's your kids that need to vent about something going on in their day, something going on in their life, being that listening ear that lets somebody get some of that toxicity out of their system is a big deal. And for us men out there, I know I definitely suffer from that problem. Just shutting up and listening every once in a while is a good thing, especially with your partner.
It's funny because I went through the same thing. I've been a person that has just handled my issues by myself for a very long time, right? I know how to resolve it. I just kind of keep going. And in my relationship now, whenever I have a problem, I talk to my boyfriend, and at the beginning, now we're definitely better. But I tell him, I'm like, whenever I need to express something to you, I just need you to hear me out because I need to get it out. But I don't want you to solve it. I promise. I just need somebody to bounce it off because you guys may have a different perspective. Women, sometimes we get caught up in the emotional component, and then you guys have this one way of seeing it, like, well, maybe it was just this. And it was
you just got to do this. You just got to do that. That's it. That's it. That's it. You're fixed. Right. Done.
Next. You know how we are, right? So I'll come home. I'm like, do you think that when she sent me that text, she meant this? And he's like, no, stop creating the story. She just said X, Y, Z. Take it for what it is. And then you're like, okay.
It's one of those dynamics that it's so funny because it's the way we kind of are. Everybody's a little bit different. Everybody's got something. Sometimes I need to vent. Sometimes I need her to listen. Right. I remember going for a run, and we're going, and I was sitting there crying I was biking next to my wife, and she's running, and I'm telling her something, she's telling, and I'm just crying. Sometimes we need it too, right? It goes both ways. So I definitely appreciate that. All right. So talk to me about sharing the tools of discarding the victim title and instead becoming victorious and succeeding in life. So, I think this is a big deal. I was talking to you before we jumped on networking. There's a lot of people, I'm trying to get people to tell their stories every Tuesday at 12 p.m. Eastern. I do this event called Networking by BizDev Live. And I really bill it as, I'm teaching people how to network, and you do some networking at the same time. But the big thing I'm trying to get people to do is to tell their stories. And I think sometimes when you get people to tell their stories, if they're talking about something that, 2020 is a big deal for a lot of people, they've been talking about how it negatively affected their business. And I don't want to be unkind to anybody.
Right.
But, I have a staffing business. You're going to tell me that you lost XY percentage of your business. I lost, I don't have any staffing business, for, over 9 months. Right. So yes, I understand that you had a hard time, but I had a hard time too. So where do we, where do we actually talk about? I know for me, I don't talk about the fact that I talk about the opportunity that it created for me to jump into doing BizDev Live, over 200 episodes, and, the opportunity to spend time with family and the good things about it. And yes, I have some challenges, and I've luckily benefited from the corporate structure. Although the revenue wasn't what I wanted it to be last year, I was able to do some other things and generate, some income from PPP because of good corporate structure. For folks that haven't had it so well, I'm trying to get advice and, try to say, hey, what this is an opportunity for. How do we tell people to be the hero of their story?
Well, I'll break that into two parts. The first part is I'll touch on what you just said, the business component. A lot of businesses were comfortable, just kind of, just riding the wave, right? Your business is doing great, revenue's coming in. We're just kind of like, navigating on autopilot. But the world doesn't need autopilot. The world needs innovators. The world needs resiliency. And this is a great opportunity for companies to break the mold and create something new. Technology is it's a scary thing sometimes, but it's a great thing, because now look at this. I mean, some of these businesses don't need to print paper anymore. The menus are now through the little QR code. There, you just saved, I don't know, God only knows how many trees. But these are things that wouldn't have happened had we been continuing on the lull of the comfort zone. So for businesses, I really do think that this is an opportunity to reinvent yourself. Figure out how do I step it up a notch that I didn't have a chance to do before. There's places in Miami that I love seeing on the news where they didn't have a choice but to shut down. But what did they do with it? They reinvented themselves. They created community environments where you can safely go and participate and have a great time by keeping safe within the realm of COVID-19. But it's about reinventing yourself through that challenge. That is great. It's part of growth. Now, personally, I'll share a very dear story to me that I'm helping a friend with. During COVID, I had a friend of mine who was living her absolute most amazing life, right? She was engaged. She had her house. She had a beautiful job. And in the midst of it, her fiance, who was battling with severe depression, took his life. And as I came in to help her, because she had every right to grab that victim title and say, yep, I'm going to carry this one for the rest of my life. But as I've been helping her throughout her journey, a difficult one at that, I've been helping her to see it from a different perspective. One of my biggest mentors, who I got to meet with and have incredible mentorship with, Dr. Wayne Dyer, the late Dr. Wayne Dyer, he said, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And when I went into mentoring her and helping her through this process, I told her her fiance's journey was already written, right? She had nothing to do with it. Remember, we don't have control of what is happening. She had no control. She gave him everything she could possibly give him, but his journey was another one. But in the process of grieving and understanding what has happened, because it's a difficult thing to take, you have to intentionally focus on what was lived. What was the good part about it? If he was battling through depression, it was for a prolonged period of time, even before her. But in the period of time that she was in his life, she gave him the most amazing moments, the most amazing happiness that he could have felt. He felt while he was with her, as she did while being with him. So you can't change the inevitable. You can't change what has happened, but you can change the way you look at it. Rejoice in the memories that you have of him. Celebrate the great things that you guys did live through. She had purchased her first home throughout that relationship. That's a great thing. Yeah. That's a memory that you always take with you. And it's not to diminish the pain. It's not to diminish the circumstance, but it's taking a step towards what can I take that was good out of it? When houses burn down, right? Why do people go back to retrieve their belongings? Because there could possibly be something salvageable that they could take away from the destruction of a home. That's what you need to do when you are approaching challenges and hardships. What can I possibly salvage from this situation, the circumstance, that'll help me move to the next step? And I think that that's what embodies going from victim to victorious. Understanding that, yes, I just went through a very horrific situation. But ultimately, how am I going to rebuild myself? Am I going to rebuild myself with the ashes of what was? Or am I going to rebuild myself with the nuggets and the structure that I'm taking with me from this challenge, and build myself up from there? Again, I say, victim, the title victim is embodied inside of a brick, and it's up to you to decide how you are going to use that brick. Are you going to carry it in your hands and become a hindering nuisance to you? Or are you going to place it down and lay all the bricks? Because life is not easy. It wasn't, it isn't, and it won't be. Life will continue to give you challenges. You've got to build upon them to make yourself a better person.
Yeah, I love that. And I think it kind of brings it full circle because you're talking about, relationships in your own life with your parents, for example, the forgiveness aspect, the gratitude aspect of it, whether you can forgive yourself. Because I think, whenever we go through any kind of traumatic situation, it's like, I must have done something, right? So being able to forgive yourself for whatever slight you think that you've, whatever piece of that that you've rightfully or wrongfully mentally committed, forgiving yourself, forgiving others so that you're not carrying that. Because I love the forgiveness, the gratitude aspect, and the idea that, anger is this thing, right, where you're drinking the poison, expecting somebody else to die. I love that piece of it, right? Those pieces of it, forgiveness, the gratitude. I sometimes get into a funk, and I think as much as I preach to other folks through this program, just remembering to be thankful for the breath I breathe, for the things that I'm able to see, for my children, for family, whatever negative stuff is going on in the world, being thankful on some small level for the little things, and incredibly grateful for the big things, like the folks that I have in my life, and the ability that we have to go out and change the world. Just a wonderful way to look at things. So when it looks like doom and gloom, changing it around to understand how much opportunity, how much abundance there is. It's a big deal.
Well, on that note,
please,
on
yeah.
the gloom and doom component, right? It doesn't matter how stormy your night is today or your day is today. If there was a hurricane sitting outside of my window today, blasting my plants all over the place, it doesn't matter what happens today. The sun always comes out tomorrow, regardless, right? The sun always comes out the next day. And if you really look at it that way, don't take your hardships and carry them on to the next day. Just realize that you lived through a difficult time today, but the sun rises again tomorrow, and so should you.
Yeah, I love that. Talk to us, because it is International Women's Day. What is, your kind of big message? I know you're doing work with women. What are some points and things that you think women should be doing, both for themselves and in a community giving back kind of sense, especially if somebody's come into their own and they're looking to, build community, create some positive change? What would you tell them that they should be doing right now to kind of just help lift up young girls, other women in the workplace? What do you think the message is there?
Well, my practice is definitely in youth enrichment and women empowerment. But I look at my son, for example. I help across the board, whether it's men or women, because I want one day for someone to come alongside my son and say, you also deserve to be helped, right? And and guided and given advice. For International Women's Day, let me tell you something. Today fills my heart because there are so many women making a difference, changing the narrative, like making huge waves to create a different world for our young girls and our young boys later on in life. My advice to people, it's not just women. Women are making a huge dent, but people in general, we really do have a responsibility to give back as much as we can, because there are people that haven't made it this far. There are people whose stories expired for one reason or another and can't use their voices. We are still here. We're very blessed and very fortunate to be here, and we can use our voices, whether it is to complain and whine, or whether it is to empower and help. And you have a choice. Again, we all come to the crossroads of a choice. How are you going to use your voice? I'm heavily involved with anything community, anything that I can get my hands on, because it's almost like a responsibility I have to give back. Somebody invested in me at one point or different points in my life. And my way of giving back is to empower those in front of me and before me, because that's how we're going to evolve. Helping each other, like, people say, fixing each other's crowns. There's so much abundance out there for everybody. So I know that there's some people that like are hesitant with helping because, oh, well, what if I help and then they take it? No, just go down the aisle of your supermarket and see how many brands of wine there are. Nobody in that aisle said, oh, I'm not going to try because there's already wine being sold. No, there's gazillion options. So there's abundance for everybody. Just go out there and help, even if it's people within your same space, because rising together is how we're going to do this world better. It's not about, well, I'm going to keep my gift here and then see how I could grow. No, it's about here, open arms. What do you need? I love the platform you have on Clubhouse because of that. What is your why and what do you need? Because, and that's how you and I met, right?
Yeah.
Because it's about giving, it's service, giving back. It's not taking away from your platform. To the contrary, it's you're gaining in your platform because of your of your karmic energy that you're putting out there. You're helping people with their need, with their questions, and as you're doing that, the universe pays it back to you. And so I commend you for having that platform. I commend you for bringing the amazing people that you do. I've met tremendous, amazing people from there that I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe, you connect with these people afterwards and you're like, wow, where have you been all my life?
Clubhouse is great that way. It's definitely that new platform that's bringing a lot of people together.
It is. And what you're giving, like I said, that's the main question today. What is your why and how can I help? And I love that because that's the message we should be saying outside of Clubhouse, outside of social media. Go out to your community, go out to the local nonprofits, your organizations, reach out to people you haven't talked to in a minute and say, hey, how are you? How can I help? Do you need anything? And it doesn't mean that, that I have it all. No, I don't. I'm still trying to figure out my way. But when you put those energies out there, it kind of comes back to you in one way or another. But you do it because of service. You do it because you want to be there for other people, and you'd be surprised at how that pays it forward to you as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And whether it's on Clubhouse or whether it's working with a nonprofit, that idea of, or in a for-profit business, the idea of collaboration, right? That idea that where we can all play nice with each other. It really, I feel like it's sort of letting go of that anger piece of it, because so many people are like, oh, I'm competing with this person, and a lot of the times I'm sending, because I'm collaborative and because I'm just like, I can only handle what I can handle. Listen, go over there. These are the things you want to ask to make sure you're getting the thing good for you. But, I can only handle what I can handle. They're good and they're right. I know I own what I'm great at, and I'm comfortable with that. And there's a lot of freedom that comes with that. When I feel like if you're competing with people, it closes you a little bit in a box on what you can say and what you can do. Whereas where everybody's a collaborator, and I learned that from looking at really, good vendors in the hospitality space, caterers that worked with other caterers that would recommend other caterers, because it's a little. If you've never really experienced that for the first time, that you sort of see it, it's like it can feel a little jarring. Wait a minute. They're recommending this other caterer and they're a caterer. Like what was that? What is that? Like, how does that work? And you get to learn, like, oh, that can work. We can all play in the same sandbox and everybody can get along and don't have to throw sand in anybody's eye. Like, we can just enjoy it and play together, and everybody can do well. And it's a wonderful thing. I think people grow faster that way. They learn from one another that way.
Well, you're seeing it today, especially after, the hardships that we went through with closures of so many businesses. If we don't join our hands together, it doesn't mean that a restaurant can help a restaurant. We are all so unique, just like our fingerprints, right? We're all so unique. Two restaurants can be serving completely different food, but you can help each other because together you're going to be able to collaborate and bring people back in and do it safely and rise above the challenges of 2020. But
I think there's so many places for collaboration. You talk about restaurants, there's things like with the ghost kitchens that are serving like the to-go kind of stuff. You can open up your own shop on a website that has nothing to do with your brand, because maybe your secret desire was doing this Italian food, but you're a Mexican restaurant. It didn't work on that. So you can open it up. You can feed your passion. Like there's so many different ways to go with it. And that collaboration can, be that opening to get that expertise or to get that opening in. And if you open yourself up to it, right? But if you're close to it and you're fighting with people, you're wasting energy there. And it goes back to, I feel like, that anger piece of drinking that poison, expecting somebody else to die. I've certainly seen it, where people were just literally wishing doom upon other people. And it's really interesting because, that business that opened up just so that they could defeat that other business, they're gone and closed now. And that other business they opened up to just kind of take fit, they're still kicking. So, you gotta sort of say, maybe that wasn't the right attitude to get into the business.
No,
with, right?
the people you see striving today are the ones that are joining forces. You really do, because you can do this life by yourself, have at it. But at the end of the finish line, you're gonna be by yourself. But what better way to do it than to get to the finish line when you've been linked up to arm in arm with other people and forcing that great energy forward. I'm a huge community advocate. Just let's do this together. Why do it the hard way by yourself? Just link up and do it together.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing. You're going to be in the news more. You're going to be a hero of your community if you're working with people, if you're helping people. It's just one of those things that it sort of seems common sense in hindsight, but when you're in it and you're in the mix of it and the heated battle of trying to make money for your business, it can seem like I got to do this and it's me against the world, and it doesn't have to be that way. I love that. And I'll say for my part, just for to add the men's side of how I'm trying to support women and bring out my inner feminist, just trying to raise my boys and talk to the men in my life and make sure that the microaggressions are not acceptable. One of the things that we're going to add to Toth event staffing as we come out of this is this policy of, which I didn't know how to even speak to. So I've been learning, over the last, year and a half, there's certain things that we can put down in print, in black and white to say, hey, these things are not acceptable, to make sure that everybody's more comfortable in the workplace, and that, the certain little, microaggressions. We had clear policies against harassment and that kind of thing. Obviously, our most big organizations, most small organizations even do. But even going a step further and saying, hey, these kind of things, these kind of comments that diminish people or make them feel less than, they are not appropriate. And these are the documented ways that we're taking action to it, and then raising my boys just to be respectful and understand that certain language and certain ways of talking about things are not only outdated, just completely unacceptable.
No, and the best way to move forward in that space is ask a woman, right? Beware, because you might get the answer that you weren't expecting. But ask a woman, how is it that I can make my business better from your perspective, right? Because we are the ones receiving it. And the more that you generalize that, the more that you equalize that, the better your business is going to be. The more attraction your business is going to have, because they'll see that not only are you educating yourself to to what needs to be in the future, but you're also implementing the steps to making it effective, and and moving forward in the right direction for men and for women.
Yeah. So the policy, just to sort of talk to that, I took the policy knowing from what we've been hearing from women and men, but particularly from women over the last few years. And I had Leslie Short, who wrote a book on diversity and inclusion, on the show. And so that was like the big takeaway for me, is the microaggression, because it's not something that we particularly put into the fine print. When I opened my business in 2011, I didn't even have rules around drinking, because I was like, oh, that's common sense.
Right.
Professional people, they understand that drinking is a no-no, and you have to write it down. And I think that's one of those things, especially for a business, because at the end of the day, if you're going to discipline somebody, to write somebody up, or really let somebody know that this is something that's inappropriate, it's got to be written down, right? It's got to be something that's concrete, and everybody has to understand those rules so that it's fair, right? Everybody's coming to the table and it's fair. You understand what it is supposed to be and what it's not supposed to be. And so for us to take that further documentation, because I've gotten that, right? So, oh, he said this, and I didn't even have a solid place to stand on in terms of criticize. I can say it's wrong, but is it drinking on the job? Is it harassment? I don't know. Now we're defining it, right? We're letting our staff know, both male and females, that these little microaggressions, these little comments, the tone, those are things that are also completely inappropriate. They're against the rules. They're not just against, manners. It's not just a thing of poor manners. It's something that is not going to be tolerated. It's not going to be accepted. If you're making somebody feel less than, or making them feel like they don't have the same voice in our community because of their position or their gender, that's not okay.
Correct. Bravo to that.
Thank you. It's hard work, right? It's something that, I think everybody's got to look at their businesses. We're certainly seeing it in institutions, right? We're seeing it right now. I know you're down in, you're coming to us live from Fort Lauderdale, right?
Florida, yes. Warm Florida as I wear a sweater.
Because you got the air conditioner going on, right? And then, we have our governor of New York State that's currently embroiled in crazy stuff, not only with really bad reports on deaths in nursing homes, but also basically being abusive to female staff members and folks. So, it's one of those things that I don't want to make any judgments or put anything out there in terms of like, oh, he's horrible or anything like this, but there certainly seems to be a piling amount of evidence. And whether it's the New York governor or somebody that's working at the post office or somebody that's working in the restaurant or somebody that's working in my staff, the idea that you can't be awesome at your job, right, and treat people bad. It just doesn't. It doesn't work. You don't get to be a hero over here and a complete villain over here, and that's okay because you did a good job over here, and people need to understand that, right? And I talk about it like this with my wait staff. I say, listen, you can be the best waiter in the world, but if you don't show up on time,
right,
it doesn't count for much. Same kind of thing. You can be the best waiter in the world, but you don't treat your coworker with respect, I don't have a place for you.
Right. But it's putting the rules in place so that they can be implemented. That I think that's
and we saw that with the past president. There were so many things that seemed to be clear violations, but maybe there wasn't a rule in place and there wasn't a way to enforce that rule. So, all those things have to be in place if you're going to run a business, a community. I think, we talk about social media, even like social media guidelines for, the different communities. And you can see, place with rules. Clubhouse is an interesting place because now you got like all these clubs and even the platform, different rules and how you have to be respectful and how the reporting trolls and all that stuff.
Again, one of the things within the hardships that we saw and the challenges of 2020 was it woke us up to the necessary changes that needed to be applied, reinventing the wheel, right? Because we've been coasting very comfortably on a lot of things, a lot of topics. And now 2020 shook us up. It shook up the entire universe and said, hey, we've got to change across the board on a lot of things. And that's the golden nugget that you have to look at, right? Because there's changes that are being implemented across the board that were never even part of the discussion a few years back. So that's the positive message that you have to look at. And then also contribute to it moving forward.
Absolutely. I know I'm going to do this for years to come. I know we have a little bit, hopefully the video and sound comes out a little bit clearer than I've been hearing it, but I know we have a little bit of chance that I'm looking forward to doing this live with you, and we'll have a very nice, clean recording of us communicating and continuing the conversation later. For today, I want to leave everybody with, please pick up Erika's book. Erika, can you let folks know who you are trying to connect with the most right now, and obviously where they can buy the book? Now, I did put your website, the TED Talk, and your LinkedIn address down below. So if you just want to speak to that, if you're on Facebook, it's over off on the side. But please let people know where they can find the book and who you would most like to connect with.
You can buy my book on my website, Erika with a K, Obando.com. So it's erikaobando.com. You get an autographed copy that way, but it's also sold internationally, worldwide, anywhere where you purchase books. And the people that I want to connect with is two people, right? Whoever has a platform for a voice that needs the message to be delivered, I'd be more than glad to help in that sense, but also to the people that need to find their voice. I'm definitely accessible. I would love to help as many people as I can strategize and obviously find their way, their purpose, and move intentionally in their lives as opposed to just reactive. But yes, I actually want to say thank you so much for this opportunity. It's been a fun interview. Great talking with you. I think that we touched on very important points that definitely need to be discussed in today's climate. So I appreciate the time.
Well, thank you, Erika. Say goodbye to our entrepreneurs, business owners, and other folks that are watching.
And sidepreneurs.
And sidepreneurs.
Take care.
Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. This is business development, not even selling it. This is intelligent. If you watch it, I promise you benefit. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration. Leadership and motivation, empathy and inspiration. Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz Dev Live, weekdays at 11 Eastern Time. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T. Biz D with C, brought to you by Cameron T.